Welcome back. We were just listening to Scott Strickland offer some thoughts about what went wrong for the man that he hired, Dan Mullen. He said he has some thoughts. I don't know if he ever expressed that. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but Allan Taylor does from The Athletic. Allan, Allan, let me ask you this. Just listening to Strickland, as I know you did the other day, and trying to decipher what he's talking about. What is he talking about in relation to having some thoughts about why it didn't work out?
Well, I think as high as Florida got in the 2020 season, which, at one point 8-1 and on the verge of, maybe being in the college football playoff before the infamous shoe toss, I think there was an understanding around the program that it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. It was Kyle Pitts, it was Kadarius Toney, it was Kyle Trask playing out of his mind, and that, they weren't built for the long haul. And when those losses started piling up at the end of last year and then again this year, it wasn't so much that they fell off from 8-1 last year. It was that they were never as good as they were going to need to be to consistently, beat Alabama or win the SEC East against Georgia. And so, when you add up the recruiting misses and really the lack of discipline that this team showed over the last 5 or 6 weeks in various categories, it became, I think, apparent to Scott that, this thing wasn't going to rectify itself, that Dan couldn't scheme his way out of this. There were just too many holes in his sort of organization to justify bringing him back. And I'm told, when those guys were on the bus leaving Missouri to go to the airport Saturday night, that everybody did think that they were at least going to get the next week against FSU, but that something changed overnight. Strickland says he slept on it and just decided, let's do this now, and because he didn't want to start contacting other coaches when he still had a coach employed.
So let's move to the obvious. I know it matters to Dan Mullen and his friends, but it doesn't really matter to any of the rest of us now what went wrong. And something did, and he couldn't fix it. What does the short list look like?
I think there's a lot of movement, obviously, for Billy Napier. And, there was an assumption that LSU would have first right of refusal on him, right, since he's down there and so close to that situation. But I don't think Scott has totally zeroed in on one guy and just said, hey, this is it, make or break. Florida's still a good job. It has varied from probably being the 10th or 12th best job in the country over the last decade to at times, being 1 or 2 when Urban Meyer had that thing rolling, and even before with Spurrier. So there are some guys that can excel here, that can recruit, and that, can challenge Kirby in Georgia, which is, the elephant in the room, right?
Hey, Allan, I heard what you said, and I've said the same thing. So I ask you, because you know more than I do. Why do we all think this is such a great job when the last 3 guys have been fired?
That's the question, right? I mean, I think we all agree Alabama's a great job, but when Mike Shula and Mike DeBose are in that boss's chair, it doesn't look like one.
Well, no, but hold on a second. It was not a good job. I had Jimmy Sexton tell me to my face before Nick Saban took that job that it's a terrible job, and you'd have to be crazy to want it. So, but we're talking about the Florida job in the present. Nick Saban turned that into a great job again, but they hired a bunch of clowns down there. Florida hasn't hired clowns; they've just hired people that couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah, well, I guess my point is that the right guy or the right coach makes a job, go take it from good to great, or in the case of that, from clownish to a dynasty. And so, I don't think any of the hires have been panned at the outset. Everybody thought Muschamp deserved a shot. Mullen had an extended run of what equates to good success in MSU, and McElwain had done it at the Group of 5 level and been in Alabama. So it wasn't one of those that on day one you said this is never going to work, which occasionally we see. And to be honest, again, when Florida was 8-1 last year, I didn't hear anybody saying that Dan Mullen wasn't going to work.
I didn't hear anybody 5 weeks ago say it. So what happened?
I know, man. I tell you, you go back to that day, the Kentucky loss was rough because they are still, for whatever the record shows this year, Florida has more talent than Kentucky and should have won that game probably by 10 points. And when they coughed that one up, and Kentucky, God bless them, held that at the goal line, that just started a chain of events to where that team, lost its motivation, was never very disciplined. And the LSU game was the one where I think everybody realized you're not going to salvage 9-3 or 10-2 this year. This is really off the rails. And South Carolina, one of the worst losses in program history. And even Missouri, if they stopped a 2-point play at the end, they win the game. But you look at those two rosters side by side, and again, Florida just woefully underachieving because Missouri's personnel-wise is in a state of flux and needing to get back. So it did unravel fast on the surface, but as you know, when those things happen, it's because personnel, recruiting, lack of accountability underneath that has sort of created some fault lines.
Allan, you know that fan base. You know the people that matter in that program. What makes you believe that Billy Napier, who at least for now the word is that LSU doesn't want, would work in this pressure cooker, which is the University of Florida?
If you're looking at it from a day one standpoint of what you knew and when, he's not even as good a hire as Mullen was based on his record, because Mullen had done it in the SEC. However, every great coach came up through the ranks, and I think there's an organizational piece to Napier. I think it's impressive. I think it's detailed. I think, for the people that don't understand football, it's impressive, and for the people that do understand football, it also carries some weight. Things aren't happening by accident down there. They didn't get a bunch of Power 5 transfers that made that program really good for just a couple of years.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.